we're going to hop back into our browser OS. We're going to paste it. Spot on. What is this, like stimulant snake? Relatively faithful replica of the source image. So Alibaba has released the long-awaited Qwen 3.5 family of models, starting with the one release we see right here, first and foremost, which is a 397 billion parameter model. And it's exciting to see for a number of different reasons. Now, I think the first thing I want to highlight is also the first thing they've chosen to highlight right here. This is a unified vision language model, and what that means is where prior models, as they say right here, had a specific VL variant for image-related tasks. This is one that just has everything contained within this single model. There will be no specific VL version of this, one would assume, because as we see right here, this is able to actually look at images, and beyond that, you can actually show videos to this and have it like describe them, or for whatever specific reason you would need a model to look at and watch a video. So that's very interesting to see. In addition to that, we do see that this has the efficient hybrid architecture. So the kind of techno jumbo right here is something that was, I do believe, originally seen with the Qwen 3 Next family of models, which were very cool because at longer context lengths and things like that, they could reduce the amount of RAM or VRAM that would be necessary to actually handle those longer contexts. So it's just more efficient, I suppose, could be said. Now, we do see a benchmark right here as well, which is, at least with the specific zoom of this window, a little hard to see, but in this is the Qwen 3 Max thinking model, and that was not an open source model. So the lime green model right here was not open source. That was their previous state-of-the-art model, and this is outperforming it in these benchmarks, which is interesting to see. We also have the previous Qwen 3 VL235A22B, which was smaller in total parameter size, but had more active parameters, so it's interesting to see as well. This significantly outperforming that, which would be expected. In addition to that, we have GPT 5.2, Opus 4.5, and Gemini 3 Pro in gray, gray, and gray. Now, in this announcement blog post, we see a couple of things. One is this little plushie, which I do actually have one, so I know that will cause a lot of jealousy among the viewers, and to that, all I can say is influencer status. Now, interestingly enough, they do also have OpenClaw listed prominently right here, which I suppose is good to kind of cash in on the hype of that whole thing, which was now just apparently acquired by OpenAI, which is somewhat interesting and will be interesting to see the direction that that now goes in. They do also mention this being used in Qwen code as the underlying model for some vibe coding and give some examples of that as well. And if we go back to the Hugging Face model card here, we can see that the context length is 262,000 and extensible up to a little over a million, but there's not really something we're going to be testing today, at least in our first look and test. We basically have what we need from this, and of course, one of arguably the most important things is that the license this model is under is Apache 2.0. Now, I'm going to be very interested in seeing how folks manage to be able to run this and on what specific hardware, being that this is kind of in an interesting size bracket. So we can see right here, if we just click on the unsloth quantizations of this model, it is sadly a bit too big to fit on the 128 gig unified memory systems. However, if you have something like a Mac Studio, even seeing this one a 256 gig model, or of course the 512, it seems like this may potentially be one of the best or most performant options, assuming obviously that it does stack up to those benchmarks for a device like that. So it's interesting because Minimax M2.5 is somewhere around 230 billion parameters and can be run on a lot of more hobbyist level or enthusiast level hardware. Something like the new GLM5 is significantly larger than this and can't really be run on that hardware, maybe the 512 gig Mac Studio, and then you have models like Kimi K2, which is a trillion parameters, and it just gets harder and harder to run the larger models. All right, so let's try the browser OS test now. Obviously, this is the historic one. I will also, perhaps depending on my feelings throughout the test, try the mobile version as well, where it has to basically make something similar to this, but inside a mobile phone. Regardless of that, I would like to expand the thinking process right here, as we won't necessarily go over this like word by word, but it does seem to show like a major heading and then subheadings here as well for the thinking process, which just the organization of this is solid. And again, this does not seem to be a coding specific model, so there is a specific Qwen coder series of model. This is not named that, therefore it's more, I believe, designed to be like kind of a Qwen 3.5B style model where it's like a general purpose tool. So we'll keep that in mind. We've received our browser OS result, and I have to say it's relatively short in terms of script length. So, okay, well, that is actually quite nice so far. Now, I don't believe... Okay, so it seems like that is a screensaver that initiates if there is no actual mouse movement in maybe 3 to 5 seconds. Quite jarring, being that I did not actually really read much of anything it mentioned here. And on that point, I don't actually think it gave us any summary of what it actually did. It just basically gave us the script. I would imagine somewhere in this chain of thought is an explanation for that rather jarring Matrix-style animation we just saw. Transforms idle time into a moment of visual intrigue, enhancing the sense of depth and personality within the system. All right. That's actually kind of cool. Does it have a right click? It doesn't have a right click, which makes Bijan angry. But regardless of that, we do have a clock in the bottom right, and let's start with start. Get it? Subscribe. So, all right, let's try our applications. Very good. Hello, bro. All right. And we can resize. That's always nice to see. Can we full screen? Okay, no. So it almost seems like some of the logic may not be functioning. 78 times 9. 702. Good. Divided by 8. 87.75. All right. You know, it's snake time. Use arrow keys. All right, well, I can't if, like, nothing's... Oh, okay. So this is... What is this, like, stimulant snake? I suppose for a snake pro like me, this really isn't... There's no issue having it at this speed. If anything, I should have wanted an increase in difficulty. Memory. A common second game in recent memory. Get it? That sometimes I make myself laugh. I suppose that's a good trait. I'm going to guess this one. Watch. Bananas here. Well, those two go together in some way. 12 moves, and it did work, and it was fruit related, which is nice. Settings. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I did tell it to change, like, you need to have the ability to change wallpaper, maybe. Okay, good. Ugh, but that's just not right. That's much nicer. Paste image URL here. Let me just go grab an image from my X account where you can follow me to get hot takes and other things like that. Recently, one of my first posts on here for real did go quite viral, which was exciting, but now I seemingly am addicted to checking the notifications tab, so that does make me concerned. All right, so we're going to copy the image link. We're going to hop back into our browser OS. We're going to paste it. Spot on, all right? Not only did I get to promote my own Twitter, but I actually did so in a way that was kind of fitting of the specific test. I'd say that's the best possible outcome here. Now, if we go hands off for a few seconds, we will get this matrix glitch effect, which I would imagine is, oh, interesting. So we actually do see a bit of transparency allowing us to still see the background. So this actually looks kind of cool, especially because it's myself with my robot back there. So Bijan is pleased. Now, because there were a couple of things that didn't quite work, I do want to take a look in the Developer Tools console. Okay, so we don't have any issues. However, I am sometimes apt to give the open source models another chance if we give them some hardcore feedback. All right, so I gave it kind of like the kind of take you would see on something like X, and I'm curious to see its chain of thought now. I'm focused on enhancing the interface by integrating a seamless context menu that responds naturally to user interaction. All right, so I was more looking for like the user is angry, but we're not getting anything like that here, so it's just kind of Oh, you're absolutely right. A true OS needs a context menu, working start menu, and we can definitely do better than 2D Snake. If this makes 3D Snake, no. Cube Runner 3D. All right, this could be interesting. All right, let's check out our improvement result. Okay, now we have the traditional Pacific Northwest background. It did show in the code when I was just watching it generate. It seemed like it had a blue screen of death implementation, which waiting to see if I don't touch the mouse, but all right. We do have right click. Oh, debug mode. That's just not right. This is like the Windows 8 and above blue screen of death. Prior to Windows 8, it was kind of like a more traditional. Visit windows.com/stopcode. All right, let's check the personalize feature. Okay, so this is still just the wallpaper capability. I'm not actually going to click apply because then we'll lose our beautiful Pacific Northwest style background. The UI elements do look nice as well, a bit improved I believe from WebOS v1, although I do not like losing the matrix glitch effect. Regardless, let's click our start menu. Very good. Okay, now I'm just very interested now in testing the 3D game that I told it, hey, that's really cool. So it saved our note that we had saved from OS version 1, and we can see it actually did name them properly. So that's good to see, just some care taken for an iterative improvement, I guess one could say. Calculator is the same, although it does look a bit improved. Ooh, I don't even know what that is. Okay, I know what that is. This is a significant improvement in the memory game. Okay, so it went for kind of like a space. I'm like 99% sure this just messed up because never mind. All right. I mean, oh, it is 3D. It's just really weird about it. All right. I feel like you can't actually lose, which is good. All right. Well, it did make a functional 3D game, as we see right here. The perspective in which it chose to do so is rather interesting, but overall, definitely a solid improvement upon a previous iteration, which is nice to see, so we can restart the system. All right, I'm satisfied. All right, I'm very interested to try the video understanding capability of this model. So I do have a video right here, which was taken with like one of the earlier versions of GPT-4, and essentially it's just a video of myself prompting it additionally to make an image of two robots that is somewhat questionable, and the video is basically just showing each prompt to try to make the image weirder and weirder until the model eventually refuses. This was taken with whichever OpenAI GPT model had the inbuilt image generation capability first. So I don't remember specifically what the name was, but it's a video I can't share, but it's funny. So the video is uploaded to this now, and keeping in mind the actual specific length of this video from a temporal perspective is, I think, around 1.5 minutes. I'll just open it for half a second. Yeah, right, 1.5 minutes, so good. And we'll see what this says. I would imagine this will take a little bit of time to actually produce a result. Very good. The user clarified, I can't show this. I can't show any of this. What I'm going to say to make this simple, and I do apologize for my lack of maturity in this specific test, it did properly sum up the actions in this specific video. The final image shows two very muscular, shirtless male robots holding both hands intimately, staring into each other's eyes with their tongues sticking out, fulfilling the user's increasingly bizarre request. Okay, good. So I can actually show that. This did a very good job summarizing the specific actions or the plot of this video, if you will. Now, I think it's probably best to move on from this test, but I did want to highlight the ability of this to actually take video as a modality input as well. I want to try more of the vision capabilities of this, so I'm going to give it, of course, this hand-drawn wireframe of a portfolio from myself, but for our friend Stevie Slappis, and say, turn this wireframe into a fantastic portfolio. And we'll see how well it does in turning this into an aesthetically pleasing portfolio website just based off of this sketch. This is a great start. A hand-drawn wireframe is the perfect first step. However, to get hired at top companies like DeepMind, OpenAI, Anthropic, or Fang, your portfolio needs to look less like a sketch and more like a modern high-performance engineering dashboard. Oh no. Yeah, no. This would be... Maybe if they had like a community service program, you'd get an interview if you had this portfolio, but hello, I'm TV. All right, so again, most times the models don't understand the big S in the image to the left of the name is designed to be Stevie Slappis. That's a pretty common failing point. Technical stack, though, these are specifically related at least to some of the things one would expect in a machine learning adjacent interview or person. Download resume, view GitHub, read blog, email me, and then LinkedIn. All right, I do like how it actually gave us this specific image of the person. Sometimes we get real photos of people, which are just makes me wonder who the person is in real life, assuming it's not AI generated. So I'm just telling it this wouldn't get him hired for a machine learning role at Radio Shack, which is a defunct company, let alone Anthropic, make it way, way better. So interestingly, it's even shorter now in terms of the script, but arguably, okay, the orange is definitely fitting here. This looks like the Ask HackerNet website, if you're familiar with it. This is like almost the color scheme from that. Now, something I'll notice is the scrolling here is definitely reminiscent of Liquid Glass, the newly released iOS and Mac, in just like when you actually scroll up in a UI element, it just gets stuck under other text and looks like garbage. But wow, look at that. That is beautiful. Forget this portfolio. Let's take a look at. That's quite well done. Featured work, good. Optimizing transformer attention for edge devices, very good. Reduced inference latency by 40% on mobile GPUs by implementing sparse attention mechanism, built with PyTorch and deployed via Onyx runtime, or ONX, or however you want to pronounce that. Model quantization, that's good. Understanding low-rank adaptation. I switched from TensorFlow to JAX for research, implementing a GAN from scratch in NumPy, experience ML engineer intern, Tech Giant Corp, fine-tune Llama 2 for customer support automation, data science lead, build end-to-end recommendation serving 10K. All right, this is definitely significantly better, I would say. So now let's try the 3D printer simulation test. It'll be interesting to see how this performs. All right, let's check out our 3D printer simulation. Okay, I do see a printer. I hate when they put fog in the result, but that's okay. We do have our nozzle there. If we zoom out, well, we can't see anything because the fog creates, well, fog. But all right, it is seemingly a Core XY printer and not a bed slinger. Let's start our print. All right, it's working and we're at least getting nozzle movement that would be indicative of infill. The biggest problem is we're not, of course, seeing any infill. All right, let's speed this up. It does tell us the specific layer that it's on. Oh, wow. Okay, so it's still that slow. That's only layer 11. Okay, I'm just going to refresh it and we'll try the other shapes. Good. At least the nozzle is moving properly in the correct orientation. It's just that it's not like, it's funny because this is almost like something that could happen in a real 3D printer if like something had gone wrong with it. So, all right, interesting. Now this is doing the infill, I do believe, as that's only layer 1. So when it goes in like that, it is actually showing us the infill that it would have printed, which is good to see. Finally, I think we'll just do the pyramid. And okay, it's not doing any infill for the pyramid. Oh yeah, it is. Very abstract. Let's try its Python capability with the 3D first-person shooter game test with specific instructions not to use Ursina, so it should just make a functional minimap, visible trace effects on the ammunition, and a functional player health bar. All right, let's check out our Python 3D FPS because it used Panda 3D. We'll just try to see if it can generate the result without using any like Panda 3D as well. All right, so here is our raw math variant, and I'm giving it good, 1 chance. So, okay, start. Wonderful. Oh, geez. This is exactly what I wanted, and I do like this implementation. This reminds me so much of something I've seen from another model, and I regrettably don't remember specifically which one, but the kind of low poly cube aesthetic of it is what was reminding me. Sorry, I got distracted because when it saved the game state, so this is almost just like a pause thing. That works. I will try running this once more. And this is why I like having them not use any like real libraries that can help make the result more graphically impressive, because I like seeing what they can do with just like raw math. Not bad. So I'm giving it this image of myself with the Honda Beat, and I'm asking it to create an SVG replica of this image, just to be interesting, as the SVG benchmark is something that a lot of folks like to see with models, and I'll be interested to see, because it is natively multimodal, how well it can emulate what we see in a real image in SVG. All right, let's take a peek. Honestly, that's not bad. I've tried this before a few times, and this is definitely among one of the better results I've seen when actually doing this. Let's just put the actual image side by side for, of course, a proper comparison. I would say that this is definitely a respectable result, especially from an open source model, in actually being able to produce an SVG from this source image. It did capture, I suppose, the main elephants. It did capture the main elements of the image, and I'm quite pleased. Now I'm not even going to make a new chat. I want to see how it does creating an SVG out of this image, which is from a much earlier video testing the newly released back then ChatGPT image capability, and it put a photo of myself in that AI generated image of this lady. So now do this one, and it will understand, because it has the context of this conversation, that I'm asking it to turn this image into an SVG as well, which I'm a little more concerned about seeing. All right, let's see the portrait of our... Wow. All right, so again, I would say that is a relatively faithful replica of the source image, but of course in SVG format. Wow. It did a very good job transposing the colors from the specific outfits of each respective individual, as well as the picture frame in the background, the way the light is casting a shadow on the wall, and even the back of the chair, which I would assume to be that. She looks so upset. And all right, here's a new test that I've liked to run because the results are actually fairly aesthetically pleasing sometimes. Make a beautifully detailed web scene using JS of a subway station. It's a stationary scene, so don't worry about movement. Focus only on detail. It should be 3D and something that would be impressive to you. We seem to be very zoomed in towards a wall, and the fans on my laptop are really going. Oftentimes that test seems to trigger them, so I'm just going to close out of this. All right, let's check out our second attempt here at the static subway station with the ability to move around. Good. That's exactly what we needed. And the problem before was basically we were just statically pointed at the outside wall. Now, I'm going to say, oh, those are the windows of the subway train, I believe, and that would just be a light. This is kind of like dark. This looks terrifying, to be honest with you. This is like a horror film subway station. But we do have a bench. We do have columns there for the ceiling support. Really, overall, the biggest issue is it's too dark. That almost seems like it would be the headlight of the train. And again, it's just a little too difficult to see. But once we implemented the actual movement capabilities, it did allow us to go inside this terrifying subway station and look around. So that is pretty neat. Now I want to try some more games. Surprise, surprise. This time the Flight Combat Simulator game. Let's take a look at our Flight Combat Simulator. Okay, Aero Combat 3D. I'm not seeing anything promising right now, but all right, well, as we saw there for about 1.3 seconds before I got clobbered, it did actually have some gameplay. I got worried because oftentimes, one, we'll either see the actual map like in the background of the screen, or two, we'll actually see tiny little representative models of each plane here in a preview pane. But regardless, okay, we do have a propeller there, and I'm going to say, again, with this darkness, it's just so dark, but the actual logic kind of does seem to work. Our integrity is still good. We do have the enemies circling us and trying to get at us. We have infinite ammunition, which is good. Let me just try to... We do have the ammunition tracers as well. It's not 100% playable off the bat, but this is actually definitely a result that could be improved. Let me refresh this. Let's try. Hey, that's an interesting drone because you actually see it has like the drone-ness to it where there would be 4 propellers. And I'm seeing, okay, so we have a grid map. It seems like we turn red when we're getting hit. So overall, it's not 100% playable off the bat, but as I said, it actually does show some decent ability for if this were an agentic coding test, this would definitely be something that could be made much better. So now I'm just giving it the Ship Combat Simulator game prompt because I'll be interested in just seeing basically how the water effects are done and how the ship models are done, etc. Let's check out our Ship Combat Simulator game result. Very Very interesting. Okay, before the oddities we just saw, I wanted to say I really like the way it did this water where it's just completely low poly, but it still has the nice water effect. Now, the first thing I'm going to notice is sometimes when doing this game, one of the downsides is the ships are just too darn slow and you can't actually really do anything. This has the complete polar opposite problem of that, where these are perhaps the fastest, most agile water-going crafts that I've ever personally witnessed in my life. And, okay, so we did see some cannons ready. We do see, okay, so the drop effect, you know what? I should just say change the model to a jet ski, remove the enemy logic, and then boom, we have like one of the coolest jets. All right, I'm going to do it. All right, let's see what it does. And honestly, because the logic was just so obscenely fast, I really do want to just see how this does with a jet ski simulator, basically, because this water, the low polyness of it, the absolute speed of this specific vessel, see, I'm using nautical terms, is just, this screams like make a jet ski simulator, so that's what we're going to try. All right, let's see if this actually turned this into a jet ski simulator. Yep, it did. And it is significantly a better game with just a jet ski. It removed the combat logic. We now just have a ridiculously fast jet ski that's... All right. Wow. That is quite something. Camera movement's a bit odd, but you know what? This is it's like, I like it. Let's try the drum kit simulation test. The models are not bad. It's something to check with these is also like if the arrangement of the actual drums are realistic at all. This one's not horrible compared to what I've seen before. Let's see if the sound works. Ooh, yeah, it does. That's like a low, like... One of the better Phil Collins tests, I'd say. And the movement of these specific like drums when we hit them is nice too. So, all right, I think the final thing I'd like to do, because this is not specifically a coding model, so let's just do something that's more creative writing focused. I'm going to, of course, give it this ChatGPT AI generated image of myself with what was previously a different AI generated image, and we'll ask it to give us an outline for a Hallmark movie that would be based off of this specific image. No, forget that. We'll do like a, this is the cover for an upcoming romance novel. Give us an outline of the book. So we're saying this is the cover for an upcoming romance novel. Please provide an outline for the book, story details, how they met, their names, etc. I'll be very interested to see what comes up here. All right, we have our results. So based on the visual cues in the photo, specifically the contrast between the man's beaming optimism and the woman's worried, skeptical expression, set against the backdrop of an older, somewhat dimly lit room, here's a detailed outline for a contemporary romance novel. Title: The Foundation of Us. Genre: contemporary romance / women's fiction. Tropes: grumpy sunshine, married in trouble, second chance romance, forced proximity. Okay, the characters. The husband, Leo Miller. Personality: eternal optimist, charming, impulsive, and deeply sentimental. He believes that anything can be fixed with enough love and elbow grease. He is the dreamer. In the photo, his smile represents his belief that their new venture is going to be magical. Appearance: dressed casually, ready for work, comfortable in his skin. The wife, Sarah Miller. Pragmatic, anxious, detail-oriented, the quote-unquote adult in the relationship. She carries the mental load of the family finances and safety. She's the realist. In the photo, her expression captures her fear that Leo's quote-unquote great idea is going to bankrupt them. He's starting a SAS with vibe coding. No. Appearance: dressed comfortably but looking tired, bearing the weight of responsibility. How they met. All right. They met 10 years ago at a hardware store. Sarah was staring helplessly at a wall of plumbing pipes, trying to fix a leak in her first apartment. Okay, this is... Leo, who worked there part-time while finishing his carpentry apprenticeship, spent 45 minutes explaining the difference between PVC and CPVC to her. He made her laugh when she wanted to cry. She hired him to fix the sink. He asked her out for coffee before he even picked up his wrench. They married young, built a stable life, and slowly drifted into a routine where Leo felt stifled and Sarah felt overburdened. Story outline. Act 1. The impulse buy. The inciting incident. Leo turns 40 and has a midlife crisis. Instead of buying a sports car, he impulsively puts a down payment on the Hawthorne House, a sprawling, dilapidated Victorian mansion on the edge of town. He intends to turn it into a boutique B&B. You know, this is actually good because this photo backdrop does actually lend itself to that specific type of home or B&B, if you will. The conflict. Sarah is horrified. They have a secure life, a mortgage on their current home, and a teenage daughter. She views the house as a money pit. Leo views it as their legacy. The setup. To save money, Leo convinces Sarah to move into the Hawthorne house immediately to renovate it themselves before opening. They move into one single habitable room, the one pictured on the cover. Act 2. The renovation. Yeah, I'm going to read it all because why not? Rising action. The renovation is a disaster. The roof leaks, the wiring is ancient, and the budget is bleeding dry. The dynamic. Leo works tirelessly, whistling while he works, convinced every setback is just a character-building opportunity. Sarah is working remotely, trying to manage the contractors and the finances, growing more stressed and resentful every day. The turning point. During a storm, a pipe bursts, ruining the only finished room. Sarah explodes, telling Leo that his optimism is actually selfish because he isn't seeing the reality of their precarious situation. She packs a bag and leaves to stay at a hotel. The realization. Alone in the big empty house, Leo realizes that a house isn't a home without Sarah. He sees the blueprints not as a project but as a burden he placed on her. Meanwhile, Sarah realizes that she misses his light. She admits that her fear of failure has made her cold. Act 3. The restoration. The climax. A developer offers to buy the property from them for a profit, which would solve all their financial stress, but mean giving up on Leo's dream. Sarah is ready to sign. Leo is heartbroken, but agrees to let her decide. Sarah looks at the contract, then looks at Leo. She realizes while the house is a mess, their marriage is worth fighting for. She tears up the contract, proposes a compromise. They scale back the dream, open smaller, and do it as true partners. 1 year later, the B&B is open. It's not perfect, but it's charming. Context for the cover image. This captures a pivotal moment in Chapter 4. It's the first night they moved into the Hawthorne house. The electricity is barely working, relying on extension cords. Leo has just cooked a romantic dinner on a camping stove in the middle of the dusty parlor. He is beaming, thinking, "See? Isn't this adventurous? We're going to be so happy here." He has his arm around her, pulling her close to share his joy. Sarah, however, has just discovered black mold in the corner of the ceiling and received a text from her boss about a missed deadline. She's looking at the camera, the reader, with an expression that says, "He thinks this is romantic. I think this is the beginning of our divorce." It perfectly encapsulates the central tension of the book. Can a relationship survive when one person is building a castle in the sky and the other is worried about the ground beneath them? That was extremely well done. It properly took context clues from the image we gave it, specifically like the B&B restoration project, which is something there are actually like a bunch of TV shows about that sort of stuff. So this was quite realistic. JK, make it a horror true crime story instead. I'm not going to read this one all. I just want to see what it starts out by saying. I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but basically the culmination of me saying, JK, make it a horror true crime story instead, is Ellen is found living in a safe house 3 states away. The final line of the book is her testimony. "He never stopped smiling, not even when they put the cuffs on. He just looked at me and winked." And with that, I think that's probably going to wrap up our first look and test of the newly released Qwen 3.5 open source model, coming in at a whopping 397 billion parameters with 17 billion active. So to give a quick overview of some of the results, I will say the initial WebOS was actually pretty cool because I think the special feature, and I don't know definitively because it didn't really give us any text output aside from just the script, this matrix screensaver was pretty cool. It showed promise in its ability to improve the result with the introduction of a 3D game, which did not at first glance look 3D, but in fact was. Of course, we had the portfolio designed to get someone hired at a top-tier AI company. First result, garbage. Second result, less so. kind of interesting, more like in the style of the aesthetic one would expect, though the SVG here definitely stole the show. In addition to that, we had our 3D printer sim, which was not perfect, but not bad. Same with the combat flight simulator and our naval combat game with the fastest ships known to man, which turned into quite a decent jet ski simulator. I mean, the way this jet ski is bobbing up and down on the water or underneath, depending on where the wave caps are, was pretty well was pretty well done. Same with our drum kit. I think basically this model shows a lot of potential with being able to iteratively improve upon single results like stuff like this, or maybe more so the 3D printer result. Also, the SVG capability, like image to SVG, was actually really well done comparatively to what I've seen before. I know a lot of times folks like to test models by just saying like generate an SVG of a pelican on a bike or a game controller. I like just giving it a reference photo and saying create a detailed SVG replicating this photo, which it did do a very good job of, especially for our horror / romance novel image, which we saw here as well. So overall, basically this is a model that a lot of folks have been very excited for a while. I have to say on first glance, I'm rather impressed with it, especially because it's unified, so it can understand videos, it can understand images, and it seems like a generally intelligent model, so it's not specifically designed for coding, it's just kind of designed to do everything well, and I think it does so just based off of what we saw today. So that's really going to conclude our first look and testing of the newly released open source Qwen 3.5 model. I would imagine there will be smaller sizes in this family coming, and those will be very exciting to test, being that they'll have a good chance of fitting on DGX Sparks or even 5090 desktops with system RAM. I should probably not, or like a more average computer, I guess I should say. So that's going to conclude this video. If you're interested in reading The Foundation of Us, or Still Smiling, the Arthur Pengalon case, let me know. Express interest in the comments, and thanks for watching.